At the beginning of the movie, we see Claude, a high school student, secretly watching a couple being intimate in their bedroom. Shockingly, the couple isn't just anyone. They're his friend's parents, who have always treated Claude like their own son. Then the story takes us back a few days earlier, where we meet Germain, a man in his late 40s who works as a French teacher at a high school. While he is busy checking his students' assignments, his wife Jean joins him and starts looking through some of the papers too. She asks him why he is giving his students such low grades, and Germain explains that most of them have written nothing but nonsense. After a while, Germain picks up one particular student's work, an essay written by Claude Garcia, and starts reading it aloud to Jean. In his essay, Claude writes about how he tutors a classmate named Rafa Ardol in math at his house. While visiting Rafa's home, Claude notices Rafa's mother, Esther Ardol, a beautiful middle-aged woman, and instantly falls in love with her. He gives Rafa a math problem to solve, then quietly goes downstairs to spy on Esther. She is sitting and reading a magazine, and Claude can't take his eyes off her. After secretly watching her for a while, he goes back to Rafa's room and tells him that his math skills are very weak, so he'll need regular tutoring sessions. Rafa agrees. After reading the essay, Germain tells his wife that Claude's writing is remarkable and that he has the potential to become a great author someday. The next morning, after class, Germain calls Claude aside. He compliments his writing but warns him that he could get into serious trouble if Rafa ever finds out what he wrote about his mother. Claude calmly replies that he wrote the story for Germain, not for Rafa, and that he has no intention of telling Rafa about his feelings toward his mother. He then hands Germain the next part of his essay and leaves the classroom. Later that day, Germain brings Claude's essay home and tells Jean everything about their conversation. Then he continues reading the next part. In this section, Claude writes that during his next visit to Rafa's house, he noticed that Esther seemed quite happy, knowing that her son was finally improving in math because of him. After admiring Claude's teaching skills, Esther went back to doing her household chores, while Claude secretly watched her with lustful eyes, having inappropriate thoughts about her. When Germain's wife Jean heard this part, she found it disturbing. She couldn't believe that a teenage boy could think such things about a woman old enough to be his mother. But Germain disagreed. He said that it was normal for boys of Claude's age to feel attracted to older women, and what made Claude different wasn't his thoughts, but his ability to express them through writing. The next day at school, Germain visited the records room to learn more about Claude's background. From the files, he discovered that Claude and his family had moved to the city 2 years ago and had changed houses several times. He quickly realized that Claude probably came from a poor family that often struggled to pay rent, which forced them to move frequently. Deeply impressed by the boy's talent, Germain decided to guide him properly so that he could become a professional writer. He gave Claude a few good books to improve his writing and encouraged him to keep practicing. Soon after, Claude handed him the third part of his essay to read. In this section, Claude wrote that during his next visit to Rafa's house, Rafa's father was also there. Rafa and his father were sitting on the couch watching a sports game together. A little while later, Esther came and sat beside them. Rafa's father then got a phone call and left the room to answer it. With Rafa distracted by the game and the father gone, Claude enjoyed secretly watching Esther from such a close distance. No one noticed him and he felt thrilled by the moment. He even wrote that if Rafa's parents stayed apart like this, he would have more chances to get closer to Esther. After reading this section, Jean also admitted that Claude's writing skills were incredible, even though the content made her uncomfortable. The next day, Claude gave Germain another section to read, and Germain took it home to go through it with his wife. In this part, Claude wrote that he had given Rafa a tough math problem to solve and then went downstairs to check what Esther was doing. He saw Esther and her husband arguing about something. Claude quietly listened from a distance. After a long argument, Esther walked off to her room, but before going inside, she noticed Claude standing nearby. She asked him why he was there, and he quickly replied that he was just looking at the painting on the wall. But Esther didn't believe him. She was sure he had been spying on her. Later, Claude overheard her talking to her husband in her room, saying that they should find a new tutor for Rafa. Claude realized that if Rafa didn't perform well in math, his mother would dismiss him as a tutor, and that would mean losing his chance to see her. The next day, he went to Germain with a shocking request. He asked him to steal the math exam paper so that he could help Rafa prepare in advance. Claude even threatened that if Germain didn't help, he would stop writing altogether. Germain became anxious. He knew it was wrong, but he also didn't want Claude to give up writing. He wanted to see him become a famous author one day, so he gave in to the boy's request and secretly stole the math paper. Claude then used the paper to help Rafa prepare for the test. As a result, Rafa scored excellent marks in math, which allowed Claude to continue visiting his house as a tutor. Rafa's parents were very pleased and thanked Claude for helping their son improve. Rafa's mother gently caresses Claude's cheek, and he takes it as a positive sign, proof that his plan to get closer to her is working. Rafa's father then invites Claude to join them for basketball the next day, but Claude politely declines, saying he already has other plans. The next morning, once Claude learns that Rafa and his father have gone out to play basketball, he goes straight to their house and knocks on the door. Esther, Rafa's mother, opens it and asks him why he's there. Claude tells her that he forgot one of his books at their house. She lets him in and begins searching for the book, while Claude stands close behind her, watching her with desire in his eyes. After a while, she tells him that she can't find any book there. The truth, however, is that Claude never left a book behind. He had come simply because he couldn't resist seeing her again. As they talk, Claude notices her earrings and tells her that his late mother had a similar pair. He adds that he misses his mother very much. Hearing this, Esther feels sympathy for him and softly tells him that he can think of her as his mother if he wants. She then brings him a drink, and the two sit down and talk for a while. All of this, Claude later writes in his essay, which he submits to Germaine. After reading it, Jean becomes alarmed. She warns Germaine that if Rafa's father ever finds out about what Claude is doing, or what he feels for his wife, he could kill him. But Germaine dismisses her worry, saying that nothing like that will ever happen. Later, Germaine and Jean go out to watch a movie together at a theater. That night, they return home and continue reading the next part of Claude's writing. In this section, Claude describes how one evening, while he was tutoring Rafa, it got quite late. Rafa's father then suggested that Claude stay the night at their house. Rafa showed him to the guest room so he could rest there. Later, at midnight, Claude quietly left the guest room and went into Rafa's mother's bedroom. There, he stood by her bedside, watching her sleep, lost in his fantasies and inappropriate thoughts. After reading this part, Jean tells Germaine that Claude is behaving far beyond his age, acting like an adult instead of a teenager. But Germaine once again defends him, saying that it's normal for teenage boys to have such intense thoughts and obsessions. As time goes by, Claude slowly becomes closer to Rafa's mother. One day, he sees her and her husband arguing about something serious. After a while, Rafa's father storms out of the house, leaving her alone. Claude decides this is his chance. He walks up to her and quietly hands her a letter. The next day, Esther reads the letter while Claude stands in front of her. In it, he confesses his deep and undying love for her. As she reads, Claude imagines Germaine standing beside him, encouraging him to speak and express his feelings. Esther seems touched by Claude's heartfelt words. Overcome by emotion, she begins to kiss him in the kitchen. Their passionate moment continues onto the couch, but they are suddenly interrupted when Rafa walks in and sees them. Shocked and heartbroken, Rafa runs to his room. Moments later, he takes his own life. Claude's essay ends with the chilling line, "To be continued." In reality, this entire scene was part of Claude's latest assignment, the one he had given Germaine to read the previous day. Germaine is stunned by what he reads. The idea that Rafa might be dead deeply disturbs him, but he doesn't tell his wife Jean about it, knowing that she already disapproves of how he has been encouraging Claude's writing. The next morning, when Germaine notices Rafa's absence in class, he panics. He rushes to the reception office and asks the receptionist to call Rafa's home to check on him. To his relief, he learns that Rafa is fine. He just has a fever, which is why he couldn't attend school. After class, Germaine confronts Claude about the story. He demands to know why Claude wrote that Rafa had died when he was still alive. Claude calmly replies that he only added that part to make the story more dramatic and interesting. Fearing that Claude might actually push Rafa towards something dangerous, Germaine tells him to stop immediately. But Claude refuses. He insists that he can't stop writing and that he will continue no matter what. Frustrated, Germaine tells him to do whatever he wants, but says that he will no longer help him or read any more of his assignments. Angered by this, Claude storms out of the classroom and throws his latest written pages into the trash. However, Germaine can't resist his curiosity. He quietly retrieves the papers from the trash bin and begins reading again. In this part, Claude writes that Rafa's father comes home one evening, feeling frustrated with his job. He sits on the couch, stressed and upset, but when his wife tells him she is pregnant, his anger fades and he becomes happy again. Later, Rafa comes in and tells his parents that Claude won't be tutoring him anymore. They'll have to find someone else. After reading this, Jermaine closes the notebook and prepares to leave for home. But as he heads downstairs, he spots Claude sitting injured on the floor. Jermaine tells Claude that he must stop visiting Rafa's family immediately. Claude agrees and says that he will no longer write about them either. He then explains that he and Rafa got into a fight earlier that day. Rafa had discovered the truth about what was going on between him and his mother, and in anger had beaten him badly. Claude adds that before ending his story, he met Rafa's mother one last time at a park. There, she returned the love letter he had given her. Claude tried to convince her that they could run away together and start a new life somewhere far from the city. But she gently refused, saying that he was too young, the same age as her son, and that a relationship between them was impossible. She told him to forget everything that had ever happened between them. After this rejection, Claude, heartbroken and desperate, goes to Jermaine's house and knocks on the door. Jean opens it and tells him that Jermaine isn't home. Claude calmly replies that he knows, and that's exactly why he came. The scene then shifts to Jermaine, who has just been fired from his job after the school administration discovers that he was the one who stole the math exam paper. Crushed and humiliated, he returns home, where Jean hands him the latest part of Claude's assignment. She tells him that Claude had come over earlier while he was away. Jermaine begins reading the new section. In it, Claude writes that he went to Jermaine's house and told Jean that her husband once mentioned she was infertile, that this was the reason they never had children. Hearing this, Jean became furious. In Claude's writing, he describes how Jean began acting seductively toward him while Jermaine was away, blurring the lines between reality and imagination once again. After finishing the essay, Jermaine loses control. Enraged by what he's read, he physically attacks Jean in a fit of anger. The movie ends with a tense scene in a park, where Jermaine and Claude sit together, talking. Jermaine tells him that he still can't believe he's speaking to the same person who destroyed his career and his personal life. Claude simply laughs in response, leaving Jermaine staring at him in disbelief as the screen fades out.